Good morning, everybody.
Good
I will pass this around as we talk. If I forget to hand it to you, just remind me. Also, as we started before, come and go as you wish for coffee, donuts, for breaks as you need them. We'll try to take a break probably around 10:30 as well, so you can remind me of that. And let's begin with prayer, which is the first page of your handout. And is there anyone who would be willing to, this is a little longer scripture lesson, anybody who'd be willing to read that when we get to it? The scripture. Yep, that one.
Not right now.
Not now, when we get to it. Great. Let's begin with prayer. Beloved, we are called to be your children.
May we delight in your love.
The prayer for mission together. Oh, gracious and loving God, you work everywhere. We ask you to arm us more and through the study of your scripture. That our bodies may be open to your mission. And then into our communities, our nation, and life and hope of people and all creation. We ask that you be.
Scripture, John 1.
I don't know.
Yeah.
John 1:40 through 52. One of the two who heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated anointed. He brought Simon to Jesus, who looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You are to be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe that because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man."
Thank you. What did you hear?
Come and see.
I think kind of the parallel to that was the word found, so see and then found.
I read over the notes yesterday and come and see what's in there. And so in thinking about this portion of scripture, I've been thinking a lot about the different ways we come and see, and also how we are found.
Else.
I think it's interesting that he changed Peter's name. I think there's some significance there. You are gonna be different, and so I'm changing your name.
Someone else. Anybody?
I'm looking at it from a different slant. Instead of from the apostles or disciples, I'm looking at it from Jesus's slant, where he says to Nathanael, there's Israelite in whom there's no deceit. And also when he's promising what the future is going to look like for them as they begin to believe in him, with the truly I tell you, you shall see. And also the fact that he accepts them where they are. He doesn't berate Nathanael for what he says. He accepts it and says, yeah, you think this is a big deal, just wait.
Also, going along with my theme of there are many different ways to come and see and to be found, where did you get to know me? There are so many different ways to come to know Jesus. You will see greater things than these. And I think that's what we're looking for.
I've always wondered what tone Nathaniel was using when he said, can anything good come from Nazareth?
Did a great job.
Did I miss that? Oh, the way she said it? I mean, was he sarcastic or just, like, really? Yeah, so maybe they went into this with a little, like.
Well, yeah, not quite, not sarcastic, but not disbelief, but skepticism.
What I hear after the discussion is not necessarily relevant, but some of you will remember what has popped into my head is we used to sing, come see Jesus, come know Jesus, come serve Jesus as a little, I don't remember when we sang it, but so that, for me, music can do that. So that brought that tradition that we used to have back.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was back around 2001, 2002.
Possibly. Possibly.
The diocesan vision at that time, when I was working for Bishop White, was come and see, come to know, come to
Okay,
serve.
sure.
And that all comes from the prayer of Richard of Chichester, who was a favorite of Bishop White's, being English, but it has become, that prayer has become probably better known for being the song in gospel, in Godspell, day by day.
Oh.
Day by day, three things I pray: love thee more dearly, follow thee more dearly, see me more clearly, not in that order. What else? So yes, these are things that we want to keep in mind today. This is the passage that follows immediately the passage we talked about last month. And it builds on that come and see theme, and more disciples, not just John's first two disciples coming to Jesus and finding out who he is. And all of these expressions, both of what's happening with these disciples and the way Jesus is treating them, are really important. And particularly, I think we're going to see today a lot of questions that were coming up in the Holy Conversations about how do people come to Jesus? Why don't we have more people here? There was a ton of that in questions 5 and 6. And what could we do to get more people here? Last time, just as a summary, we focused on the 3 areas here that the congregation talked about during the annual meeting, which were belonging, worship, and purpose. And phenomenal discussion, I thought. I think that what was really unusual, and I mentioned this to Tammy, is that you all brought up everything that we talked about. I didn't raise any of those subjects. I commented on all of them, and probably too much, but you brought up everything that we discussed that's summarized in those notes and identified these areas of importance, and we just went with it, and we covered a ton from the Holy Conversations. And I do see that what the congregation shared is very much in line with what we identified. And so I think we have a good starting point and summary. I think today's lesson takes us in a couple of building directions from what we talked about last time. And so we were talking about things that people need in their lives, and that this community has identified as very important in this community life, that also are fundamental, important needs that people particularly have today. That sense of belonging, the sense of purpose. As we got into thinking about worship, we didn't put this under a topic, but there's also a topic that we're seeing in the disciples here and in Jesus's response to them, which I want us to keep in mind today as well, which is a sense of wholeness or transformation. And so we partly focused on purpose and belonging last time in secular terms. But what makes a church community different is maybe the belonging is more filled with love and spirit, and the purposes are as well. And the other thing which these secular psychologists don't often mention, unless they use different words for it, is we're seeking a sense of wholeness and transformation. By transformation, I mean what Jesus refers to as repentance. Every place in the Gospels where it says Jesus started his ministry, he said, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Or it can also be translated, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is already here. So he's announcing entirely new thing happening in the world. And he's saying repent, which we have in the Greek word metanoia in the earliest translations that we have. And metanoia means to change one's mind. I would argue that Jesus uses it more broadly than that, although my wife's uncle, theological Bishop Vogel, would say, no, metanoia is change of mind. Okay, let me disagree with him and say, it's, you know what, and he would be fine with me disagreeing with this. He's amazing. To mean change your whole way of life. Soul, spirit, body, mind. The same way that we love God fully. Change your entire way of life. So this sense of wholeness is something, and transformation is something about that. It's about we're going to live a new way of life. Yep.
So I'm gonna put in a plug for what we're gonna do during Lent. And that's to work our way through this resource that's called Belonging. And it's a fabulous resource. And the writer of this book works on 5 keys to unlock your potential as a disciple, as a follower of Jesus. Her first, the first chapter is called Discomfort, which is exactly that which is necessary for transformation. And I think that's one of those things that we just hate. And at the very same time, that's what is necessary for transformation. Working on it.
Probably all of the involved.
So let's keep these themes in mind, along with the themes we focused on before, and recognize that this third area of transformation or wholeness might be something like shalom. It's a bigger word for peace. It's a sense of feeling complete, of having an integrity in your being. So behind all that, there's this ultimate thing. So the secular folks have identified belonging and purpose, belonging with love, caring, community, as we talked about last time. And purpose can be all the things we do. In the case of Trinity, we recognize that that's included in our worship together. and in our outreach and in our Christian formation. All those are purposes that people feel any place where people are serving. So the thing that the church probably places first is this wholeness and transformation. That's what makes churches different. It's also where non-church people feel wary about, and partly because of this discomfort. You're trying to make me be something that I don't want to be. It turns out these disciples do want to be, and we do want to be whole and transformed. And it's something else that we have to share with people. The challenge is the order that we do these makes a difference. And one of the things that has happened in traditional church communities, meaning starting in the 4th century, monasteries, and then cathedrals a little bit later, and then the church communities as we more know them since then. They come out of primarily a Roman Catholic tradition originally, start in an opposite order, which is saying to people, you need to believe what we believe to be part of us. And so they ask people to come and be baptized and be confirmed and to accept the way of life before they sometimes experience it. And that's where we get a lot of rejection today is, well, I don't necessarily believe what you believe yet. So we need to keep in mind as we look and that we have all of these to share with people, but the order that we do it may matter. And so most people's first experience and strongest experience of church is some kind of belonging, some being part of a group that cares for them and loves them. And then they recognize that by serving others, they have a very important purpose in their lives. And they begin to see these people have something else that they're experiencing in this. And then that's this wholeness and transformation. And ultimately through these relationships and through what they learn along the way, they experience this transformation. And we don't have to be afraid of that, and we don't have to do it in the fixed order that the church has traditionally done it, because who takes care of this? Wholeness and transformation. The Holy Spirit, God takes care of that. And we've got that right in the story of Nathaniel, that the Holy Spirit was already working in Philip to invite Nathaniel, and then God took care of it. And Nathaniel sees this, and he says, first of all, of course, he said, can anything good come out of Nazareth? So he was not there yet, but he talked to Jesus, and he said, how did you know me? He's already being transformed by Jesus. How did you know me? He realized that deep down, Jesus knew who he was and cared about him. And then Jesus says, you believe already. but you're gonna see greater things than these. And he's basically describing something like Jacob's ladder occurring. The union between earth and heaven. And you will experience this. And that's even greater transformation. Another thing that Jesus says to this is, you will do greater things than me because I'm going to the Father. We never believe that, but we need to. That's what we're here for. So another element to keep in mind as we talk about what is this church community called to, and we think about maybe the biggest question that I saw in the Holy Conversations is, how do we connect with more people? How do we share what we have? And now we've talked for 4.5 hours about everything we have to share with people. And it's what people need. So that question becomes even more significant. Thoughts, questions?
You were right, Tammy. I can't shut
Nobody is here to shut up. I'll emphasize that.
No, well, I think-
Holy Spirit speaks to all of us.
I think that we have an incredible gift of sharing love. Oh, my crap. I didn't expect that. And I think that as each of us go out, and me in particular, don't laugh, everybody, open my mouth to say, Jesus works through me in this particular community. And I have come full circle from not thinking that to coming back to believing that. So I think individually and as a group, as we share with each other here, example of Jesus' love. And I think as we share that, that's how we can draw them, because that's what drew people to Jesus. It wasn't just, yes, it was the healings and all the things happening, but it was the love and what he was sharing with them.
Thank you. Other comments? Questions? You ready to start sharing your homework? Great. Well, jot down things that you're thinking of. What we want to do is identify some of the major things that we would like to work on as a community. And a way of saying why that's important is saying, what would this look like if we were actually doing this? It also helps us to get senses of things that would support it if we ask that second question. So when we talk about, I think we need to do this, whatever this is, you also need to say, and when we do this, it will look like this with some detail. So not just there'll be more people in church on Sunday, or we'll have more financial resources, whatever that is. But this is what will be happening. Does that make sense? And I'm just going to ask people to give me what they think is their highest priority, the highest priority for the church first. We're going to collect all those, and we'll collect seconds, thirds. There's going to be some overlap. We'll note where there's overlap. Up here.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and then we'll talk further about them. This isn't final vote or anything. It's, do we have what we need to talk about? And then we will prioritize them and start talking about how we might work towards them. Does that make sense? Great. So. A whole new pad. So we'll be fine, but we will do a change out in a couple pages. Who would like to go first with a significant priority for Trinity Janesville at this time?
I go first, because I didn't do my own.
Yeah.
And this is my first time here. I've certainly been part of it. The one thing, and this maybe is off, I think we have to decide what we can do with this building to utilize it better, bring more people into, I know we have our 12-step groups and whatnot. We've had a couple ideas that have been, run through the processor that haven't panned out, but with our finances the way they are, I really think that this is the building we need to look at. How we can. I don't know what we can do. I don't know if it means sell it, rent it, whatever, but I think this building is a big priority.
Can I ask something?
Yep.
Can Paula look at the second part of the question you asked? What would it look like? Because I think Paula's got some ideas on that.
Okay. What would it look like if that were happening?
Boy, I'm not sure what those ideas.
Well, what would it look? I mean, be brave, Paula. What would it look
What
like?
would it look like?
Mhm.
If I had my way, it would be gone.
Okay.
The
Mhm.
building would be gone.
Yep.
It would, but like, I can't remember who said, I think Jim, your son said to knock it down would cost it would cost more than, I think it's a white elephant. And
Okay, two things.
Well, no, that's not what we're doing.
No.
People have their hands up.
Mhm.
Yeah, so let me pass it around, but let's qualify. We're not gonna talk in a lot of detail on what the solutions are. We do want to have a sense of what could this look like. And also particularly if this was really any of your objectives and you wanna flesh out what it might look like further, that's great, because we can get it all together at the same time to flesh it out. But we're not actually into these are goals. We want to say, this is what would be happening here or happening where. So you're on.
So this was my second one.
Okay,
So is that appropriate for me to talk about now then? Okay. So I have kind of opposite of what Paula said. My idea is envision is to use Ortmeyer in a way that we can sustain its cost while providing support for community needs. I envisioned using the downstairs area as a transitional housing area and applying for funding to get assistance for that. And then the upstairs continue to be used as for church activities, as well as activities for the people who are living in the rooms downstairs. Turn one or more of the back rooms of the Ortmeyer main floor into the kids' teen room, bringing the teen kids a space and the little kids a space and having the supplies up here. So that when we're coming out for coffee hour, we don't have to run up and downstairs. We can just bring it out and have spread out a kid table or and have the adults and the kids and everybody together. From what I understood, that was sort of how things used to be in the past. And then in honor of the tradition of the musicals of the past, host karaoke nights in the Ortmeyer Hall for a small cover charge or donations to sort of kind of bring community in and have that kind of environment. So that's sort of my vision.
I have a vision of like, a tribute night.
Oh, yeah, you can do tribute night, that'd be cool. And you have the people that you already, I'm sure some of those people who already do trivia stuff with would come, you know, opening it up. So those are kind of, and like I said, that was my second.
That's great. More on this?
I don't know how many were around when this building was built, but I'm one of them. And I remember standing outside the front door of this with Bishop Gaskell, I believe. And he was dedicating this building, and the one thing he said was, when he dedicated the building, that may it always be used to fill the wonderful outreach that we can provide to the city and to our parish family. That was his words when he dedicated the building. And I think it can be used. And it has been, but we have just sort of let it go by the wayside, and we haven't had the resources and the people to implement that. I mean, I for one can't step up and say, oh, I'm gonna do a trivia night now, everybody come. I'm just not up to that, but we need to find people that are. And we need to find those people, even if they're from the city. They don't have to be from our parish to start something here, but they can use our building.
Boy, that's a new idea.
You wanna add? Yeah, you wanna add something within that?
I was one of the ones who was here, and I think that we also need to go back to the idea, if we're looking at utilizing the building better, how is that responding or reflecting my first thing, which was share how Jesus's love works in our daily life. How does it make a difference practically? And I think that as we look to the use of the building, that has to be, in my opinion, behind whatever we are doing. We had as some of you know, we had the Echo clothing thing downstairs for many years. The gifts program when they were doing the churches. So we have been open to helping it. So we now have another congregation that is sharing this building on Sunday afternoons. Those are ways that we can continue and look forward and let the people know it's there. Now, Reverend Kathy did a wonderful thing by letting the community or whoever it was know that it was available as a warming shelter. I don't think it ever got out the way it should have publicly. You know, that this is a place that you can go for safety. Those are some of my thoughts.
Somebody has their hand up back here.
It was number 2 for me as well, Tammy. But it was an offshoot of what number 2 was. And that for me was finding ways to increase or extend our financial resources by increased membership, not necessarily everybody here physically, by fundraising or grant writing or having part-time clergy, which would save us money. This would allow us to do some other things. Kathy and I met with a woman named Claire Gray, who knows about developing business opportunities. And she came and toured the building with us and said that she thought it was ripe for a variety of things that this community is desperate for right now. Not just housing, but meeting space, like an incubator for businesses that can't afford a big office space. And having a little bit of extra money would, I think, allow us to hire somebody like Claire Gray, who has skills that we just don't have, who would be able to go out and mine the community for those kinds of things. And that would bring money in to allow us to decide what the heck we're gonna do with this building.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Reverend Kathy and Jim, but is it not diocesan policy that buildings automatically belong to the diocese and that we do not have the say of whether we sell it or not? I'm reminded of it, was it Canterbury in Milwaukee?
I think we have to look at that part.
Yeah, the standing committee needs to approve loans on the building or sale of the building or significant reconstruction of the building. Generally, if you have a mission purpose for a building, the standing committee will support that. So we don't have to be afraid of it unless just selling the building and taking the money is not an option. Selling the building and giving the money to the diocese would be an option. So we're not going to provide financing for the church usually by selling a building or selling property. But generally a mission purpose other than getting money will be supported. Other comments about that? Does anybody else have something related to utilizing Irvine Hall better as one of their top three? It's two for you. So we've got 4 people of our group that listed that concern as 1 or 2, and it's mentioned multiple times in all the conversations. So this definitely is an opportunity or concern to discuss. Did anybody else have ways to increase financial resources as one of your top 3 objectives? Okay, good.
Tell me what you got.
Well, and maybe because I wasn't here last time, so I was thinking in bigger terms, not specific to like Fort Meyer Hall or whatever, but I had become more financially stable.
Yes.
And so that's kind of, I think, in the same category.
Yeah, that's exactly. So what would that look like?
So I assume the conversations about Fort Meyer Hall are because of the expenses related to it and maintaining it. But that's not, the only thing. There's a lot of different expenses.
We're gonna turn to your topic.
Yeah.
It just became your topic. Ways to become more financially stable.
Well, I think we have to look at where we're spending money and maybe, take hard looks at that. Where money's coming in or not coming in, how to address that. And then, I hadn't really thought about that, but the idea of, I don't even know if it's possible for the church for looking for other financial resources such as grant writing. I hadn't really thought about that, but certainly in other things I'm involved in, that's a huge part.
Okay, great, thank you.
I don't know about anybody else, but my financial statements are based on a budget for the year. And I think we need to look at what we can cut from the budget or what we can add to the budget in order to raise those funds. Maybe we need to shut off part of this building. Maybe we need to put some more and I know I'm probably gonna be chastised for this, but maybe we need to cut some of our employees' hours and utilize people on a volunteer basis. I can remember a time when we used the secretary, for example. Definitely the janitors were volunteers,
And they are now.
and they are now. I think we need to use that more. I think more people would be involved, and more people need to be asked to do something and told that it's needed to be done. For example, you know, we need to tell somebody that the church needs cleaning. And how many people agree with that? And have we been told that? Have we said, hey, what can we do to clean this building? Who will do it? How could we possibly get that parking lot over there fixed? We found out about it, we did something about it. We find out about the church needed cleaning, do something about it. We need to find out these things.
In keeping with your comment on a budget, it goes both ways. When I budget what I make and, you know, figure out what's gonna cost a year, first thing I plan for is what I give here. And I tithe. And if we all did that, we would not have a financial issue.
Amen.
Always good to remember. We all have money in our pockets that isn't getting into the church. The other thing on that is, let's go over financial.
I will say though, that there is a lot of financial transactions going on in this parish that no one knows about. And so it may not show up on a statement, but there's a lot of things being purchased and done and whatever that just happens under the, and you know, I know I've been told I can do in-kind things, but I don't. And I know many of you are in the same boat that I am. So I just put that out there that even though we have this budget, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of extra giving going on. So I know, Paula, you're the example of that. But again, to document this as, you know.
That's right.
I think one of the key points of why we wanted to do this mission and vision and talking about the budget, and like Adele said, was to really align our budget and have mission vision and really be able to say each budget line, this is how it ties in with our mission vision. I know that that was a key component of why we're wanting to do all of this, especially in light of the issue, you know, the financial situation. I think the biggest thing is people need to reflect how best to communicate with them, like the cleaning of the church. There were things out there. We had signups, people signed up for different parts of the church. It's happening right now. I saw Rich when we came in for our DOK meeting last week. He was cleaning this hall right here with his dog when we were here. So it is happening. So I don't know if we just need to be able to, if you need to be communicated to in a different way, you need to speak up to say, hey, here's the best way to communicate with me, because nobody's a mind reader. And I know, like, for me, it's really difficult for me to do phone calls or anything other than emails, because my time to be able to work on church activities is 5 a.m. and most people don't want to call at 5 a.m. So I think that you have to realize where people are coming from. And like Julie said, people are donating the DOK and bring snacks and the coffee hour and I mean, people are, it may not show up as here's what I'm contributing to the church, but like when I'm deciding what I'm contributing to the church, I'm also holding aside some money to be able to do those other things and to be able to give money for flowers and, you know, all those different things that come up throughout
An awful time finding stuff on. It disappears. I get lots of stuff I don't want to see on my phone. I don't know how to this day, I've only found once how to Zoom. Because people haven't explained it to everybody. Not everybody's on the same boat this year as they used to be. Used to is the bad word. We gotta get rid of it. We gotta get rid of used to and live in today. And today is a different time where we have to learn these new things, but we have to be taught how to use them also. And taught how to communicate with people. Our little groups, for example, are one way of getting together and know what's happening. And knowing what people need. And that goes back to what we are as a community. We're a loving, caring community. We already love people. We love people. We care about people. We can care about our community. But we have to know about it. We have to know what's happening. We have to know that.
Some people, like me, like you, we have big mouths, and we let people know when something's wrong, when we need something. I was just in contact with Sue Wesson. Dave is still on a breathing tube. He's still in the hospital, and she's just not a big mouth. We need to reach out to the people who aren't letting their needs be known.
I want to say thanks for Tammy for the segue. Because I had trouble numbering these, but my number one was communication.
We're gonna come back to communications next.
One thing, when I was a teenager, I came into this building for dances on a regular basis. Want to talk about the buildings? They were here and they were at the Lovejoy House, which used to be the YWCA. And I didn't belong to the church at the time. I belonged to St. Mary's, but there was community dances for teenagers. And they were very popular.
See, when you want to talk about.
Yeah, like somebody raise their hand. Oh, I mean, sure.
Mine has been, my first one has been touched on in a number of ways, and I guess I looked at this from a bigger picture. It is meet, listen to, accept people where they are at, and so that kind of gets at what Paula was saying about quiet people, it gets at the communication, so to me, that's the most important.
And if we want to invite or I can't think of the word I want, I'm getting old. New people, younger people, wow,
Like her.
we might,
I love when 50's younger.
well, I'm thinking 50 and younger. There are even some older people like me that choose to do a lot of stuff digitally. And I know that we as a body don't like to talk about that, but it's the truth. And we need to figure out a way to do both things, to be able to minister to people who don't know how to Zoom. Although I'd be happy to teach you one old person to another. And yet, you know, my kids, I had to learn how to text about, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, because my kids won't call me. And now I don't want to talk to anybody. You want me? Text.
See,
That's where I kind of shut off. Of course, you all know I'm a phone. The kids say they're gonna bury me with a phone in my hand, so you know. And that's where we have to do both, because for me, texting is fine. I know the kids are still alive and all. But for me, the sound of the human voice also resonates. Feelings, emotions, And I think that it's really important part of our communication to make sure that we are including all of those parts of communication that help us to understand where each other is. And I'm not, I mean, yes, I text, but I'm not sure that tells me where everybody is, where somebody really is in their lives. And I think that's an important part.
So on Sharon's piece, my number one, I got a little bit more specific with my kind of thing. So my number one is encourage those with young children to continue to participate in our church community. We have a couple of new families that have younger children. And I feel like Adele said, we can't go back to how we did before, but kind of utilize some of the things that we've used in maybe a different way. My thought was to use the downstairs area at church to create a place where young children want to come, while the parent can still participate in the church service. Now that we stream the service, put a TV down there and have them. But it was a used to, but incorporate the communication and the put a TV down there, and because we live stream the service, so. Correct, yeah, and then either have somebody go down with communion so that they can still participate in communion, or have everybody come up, the parents and the kids come up for communion and have them be part of the, and then just some of the other pieces with that is to provide childcare options for certain activities, so those with young children can feel like they can still participate. We have a lot of people who, you guys are always loving on squeezing babies, so people who might be willing, or teenagers. My girls aren't the best with that, but maybe, you know, like Angelina, maybe, I know she's always really good with kids. And the other thing I thought was to see if we can coordinate a time where all of the new young families can have like a young parent organization or meeting here, and then invite other young parents to bring, because a lot of our discussion is talking about, well, how do we bring other people in? And I came because of a dance, I came because of a funeral, a lot of people come because of things that happen. So if we can create a young parenting group here at Ortmeyer, and my thought would be to make sure that the families who are already coming, make it a time that's convenient for them, provide childcare, and then invite community, then you've got more people, and maybe even have like mentor type people, because I know that was a big one in a lot of things here. You guys are amazing parents, and I know when I struggle with things that are happening with my kids, it's always wonderful to be able to talk to you guys and say, yeah, I made it through, you know, that kind of stuff. And like with Jack going away to college, and I'm freaking out about my kid going away to college, just being able to talk to him and have my daughter talk to him was amazing, because it really did make her feel much better about that. So like kind of using the resources we have amazing people here who have had amazing lives and done amazing things, and to be able to have them share that in a fun environment, that's just my thought. And then things come from that. I feel like you don't do it to get more people, you do it to provide a service, and then it might come out of that.
Julie's got something. Julie's got something.
Well, I guess I'll say we did offer events this summer and
Nobody came.
one person came. So, I mean, with it being all on my shoulders with Reverend Kathy's support, I can only do so much. So I will just put that out there. No, I know it's not, but I'm just because maybe people didn't know what I offered this summer. What we have talked about doing is bringing in Jack and Madison to help with the youth, because we are at two ends of the spectrum. We have littles and we have teenagers. And so I'm very excited to get them involved, because they have known some of these kids since they were younger. So that's kind of the direction we're moving in, because again, I can't be helping two age groups.
Sunday mornings.
Say what?
The same thing Sunday mornings.
Oh, yeah, we need people Sunday mornings, because I can be in two places at once, but nobody benefits from me trying to jump back and forth between little people and teenagers. The other thing I wanted to say is something we did with a form that we filled out, made a couple summers ago, is the next time we do a directory, let's ask people what their preferred communication method is. Because if I can go down and I can see that Marlene likes a phone call, I'll call Marlene, but if I worked with Sharon, I didn't necessarily realize she preferred text. Now I know. So I mean, what a simple.
Because he used to just walk down the hall.
I did, and I have called you, and you've been kind on the phone. But we could do that today. I mean, let's take these little wins that we can get and make things better.
And if you want something mailed to you, then it would be really great to provide the postage. If you want something mailed to you, it would be really great for you to provide the postage, because postage now is, what is it, 75 cents a stamp? We don't have the budget for that.
And with the communication piece, make sure that the directory is correct. I just realized that my phone number in the directory is incorrect.
So if you
Has been
see-
for a while, which I sent it to Lisa Marie, but I didn't even think to double check, because I had sent it out there several times saying this is my new number, and didn't think to double check it.
And if you want a
Yeah.
print copy, ask for it.
Yeah, well, I thought maybe printing out a copy to put out back and just say, please
No.
check your directory information.
But if people want a copy of the directory, to please ask for one.
Oh,
I would like a copy of the directory.
Okay, I'll email that to Lisa Marie.
Did she email me one maybe 4 months ago, when I asked for it? And
Yeah.
we didn't- Yeah, we shouldn't ask for it, everybody should get one.
No, we're not
It
gonna print all
changes
those.
really- It changes a lot, Adele. You would be getting a new directory probably every 3 months, because I'm DOK, so I get a copy electronically every time. And it does change often, so.
That's what I was gonna say, every 6 months or something.
Or on.
It's,
If,
but
you
you
know,
don't
we
look
get
at your
these
email.
notices every month or every week of what's happening. If there's a change in the directory, just say, change this in your directory. That's the way people do things. As a newer person at Trinity, I really value this directory. It not only has helped me to get to know people, but to contact people with questions. So
And how did you get your directory?
I asked you for it.
You asked for it.
Can you all hear me?
No, you need the,
So another organization I belong to went to an electronic directory, but if you want it, and being the chaplain, I have to send out birthday and sympathy and get well cards. We pay $5 and we get the direct. Now, this is a full pamphlet because we have more than just the people's, but $3, $2, help, at least pay or donate the paper. And then you get your directory, and that works for us pretty well.
hey, great.
Yeah, this is an example of different ways of communication working for different people. So you're probably gonna have to have a central place where you can contact somebody to get it in the form you want. Because some people are only gonna get it by mail. Some people are gonna love it by email. And so it needs to be available for some people. Some websites have a members only section, and that they just put it up on the website, and that way you get the latest data right away. So there's 3 examples of methods that different people are gonna be comfortable with.
Who asked that?
I did.
That makes me heave a very big sigh. I feel like getting in the weeds of fixes and away from any kind of big picture.
Well, we are capturing big picture themes, but sometimes we're getting into real specifics.
And I wonder if I could, my number one was none of these.
Yeah, let me. We have multiple people who have communications as one of their three. And I'm gonna start with you.
I put it as number one, although it was hard to pick one. Because every so often I've heard around here, I'm not being heard. Or I don't know about this, or how come we don't know about that? And I'm gonna go kind of back in time for a solution here, but many, many years ago, I was the senior warden. And I missed an annual meeting because my very young granddaughter was in the hospital and I went to Green Bay to stay with my grandson so mom and dad could be in the hospital. And there was what I'm going to call a kerfluffle at the annual meeting, which was huge. People were apparently practically coming to blows from what I heard afterwards, and there was a lot of anger. And most of it was about the budget, which they just had seen for the first time at the annual meeting and had already been approved. And somebody described it as similar to Enron, the meeting. So I worked with the priest afterwards and we came up with a series of listening sessions and we kept them going for a very long time, and it eventually kind of all fell apart. There was once a quarter, there was a listening session. One was on the budget and finance. One was on worship. One was on education. And one was on building and grounds. And the idea for the listening sessions was that the finance committee or the worship team or the Sunday school teachers or the junior warden, whichever it was, would come and listen to the people.
Great idea.
They were not there to answer questions or to provide solutions or to do anything like that, but to just hear what people had to say. And we had pretty big groups, you know, we'd do it on a Sunday after church, I think. Was that when, yeah, like during the coffee hour, and everybody, a lot of people came. And they would say, you know, and for the budget, it would be presented to them before anything was passed by the vestry. The budget thing came before any meetings or anything like that, so people could see it ahead of time. And they would have a chance to look at it, and they would say, you know, I feel really strongly about this. And it would be listened to and taken into account. And I remember the first time we did that, people would say, I really don't like this in the budget, and here's how I feel. And nothing changed in the budget. The budget stayed the way it was, and nobody minded because at least they've been heard. And I feel like people are feeling like they're not being heard. And I really would like it if we could go back to these quarterly listening sessions where whoever's in charge of building and grounds says, these are the things we'd like to do, or what do we need? And people can say, this is what we need. This is what I think. Please hear me. I think that helped so much. And I really feel bad that people are saying, I don't know what's going on. There was conversation in a small group after the annual meeting about what about this in the budget and what about that in the budget. And we did have it ahead of time to look at it. But not everybody looks at it in depth until they've got it, the annual meeting, and then afterwards they're saying, yeah, but what about this? What about that? I just feel like you need better communication, and I know there was something else in my head and it's gone now, but that's what stood out. And that we all need to listen to each other. And I'm gonna leave it at that because I can't think of what else it was.
Great.
Anne's got her hand up. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Just shortly, I'm gonna piggyback on what Rita said, because I was around, I think then. A large part of communications, as of the listening sessions, is the important part that says you will be listened to with respect. And I have to watch that too, so that one of the issues I see is, and this is not something we can deal with, is in the Episcopal Church, the vestry has the budget, it's presented as, this is the way it is, and it's, you know, it's passed. And and basically in our canons, the people don't have anything to do with it as far as changing it. Like you, Rita, I remember some pretty hot steamy budget sessions at annual meetings also. So I think we have to be aware, one, that we are listening with respect, that everyone feels that they are equally valued in what he or she has to say. And that we have to also be aware of the parameters of what we can or cannot do. But I think more ahead of time, as she said, is valuable.
Tammy, do you want to speak to that again, as to why we're even doing this vision and mission thing?
Oh, so I,
So as a reminder, just, that is the whole point of aligning our mission and vision to the budget. Having those pieces of the budget be part of the process so that every single thing, every line in the budget is tied to something that is part of our mission and vision. That's the goal of being able to do that. And people are electing people to the vestry, and my understanding of what vestry is supposed to do is we're each, all those of us who are in the vestry, we're our own individual listening session. Like your one-on-one listening session is if you have something that you feel passionate about, but I see where Rita's coming from, where she's saying that, well, this piece of the budget, but if we align our budget to mission and vision, which everybody is aware of the mission and vision, and we're gonna have to obviously do a good job of getting that out there once it's done, then there really hopefully wouldn't be that, because you've already got that alignment with the mission vision and tie that into the budget. So there would hopefully not be issues or problems with it, because you're aligning it with what we said we're gonna be doing. And so that's, I think, is that what you meant for me to be saying, Reverend Kathy? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna break in here for just a moment because I think Joe had this as number one on her list. She sent her in her homework early, so that she's, yes. She phrased this under sense of belonging as a topic, but her first one is review and improve communication processes to ensure we always have clear and transparent communication processes for all members and prospective members. So that's a goal statement and a very good goal statement, except that we need to make it more specific as we go forward. But that's a focus area for communications, and it's recognizing things that people are talking about. We're having this recorded for transparency. And we want to do that. And listening sessions, if people are getting angry over things, a primary place to look is communications. And so some form of listening session about the budget is not a bad idea. A lot of congregations, all bigger congregations, have a budget Sunday before the annual meeting where they present and allow people to say, hey, we don't like that. Even though, yes, it's correct that the vestry has authority to approve the budget, and only they do. The annual meeting doesn't. So, well, it's typical, and there's people aren't used to coming from many different polities, how the Episcopal Church, if they come out of a Lutheran church, the annual meeting votes on all of that. So there are different expectations. So one of the things we need to communicate is expectations, but we also want people to be able to say, hey, this troubles me. Could you think about this? And you want your community doing it, just like we're doing it here. The Holy Spirit speaks that way, to do it. So this is one. Second part of Joe's was a particular, what this might look like. And she, in this case, she's looking at it from prospective members, and members. An example of this is perhaps a handbook for members and to give to prospective members. This would include names of people in leadership positions along with their duties, or who are in charge of the various outreach programs with descriptions of outreach programs. Handbook would include phone numbers and email addresses, would also include frequently asked questions about our church and how they can connect with others in the community. So there's a communication plan built into a handbook.
I think getting, and I thought this before you read what Joe said, but getting all this on the front end, instead of having listening sessions because we're having issues, let's have listening sessions so that we can hopefully be more celebratory with, this is great, you know, and then asking questions versus trying to solve problems. And that's what the handbook would be a great, again, you have some information, then at the next listening session, if you had a question about something, you would know who is in charge of it, you would have that information going into the session.
It's obviously not updated. Because I know it's not. I know.
And all that information is on the website. So what it would take is somebody figuring out how to transfer all of that information into print so that it could be created into a handbook. So somebody, whoever can volunteer to do that task, that would be great.
That's the website, you.
We do in the office. So there are a few people who have the password and information to keep updating that. And I do know your vestry has not yet been updated. It's been, you know, just a couple of weeks since we had our annual meeting, so that needs doing, but most everything else is up to date.
So I learned how to go in there and find the website. It's going to tell me everything that I've been concerned about.
You have all of your pieces of paper, vestry minutes, you have your parochial, not that, your annual report is there. We don't, because we don't have it password protected, so we'll have to learn how to do that in order to get a directory on there, because that isn't public information.
That was on the old website.
Right, yeah, so we'll have to learn how to do that. And then all of the other things, the ministries we do, what you do when you come here to, I mean, what to expect when you come here to church, where to park, what door to come in. There's all sorts of information on there. And if you, when you go through that, you say, it would really be helpful if this was there, then you send an email and say that, it would really be helpful if this was there. And then we can put it there. So that it's as easy as that.
You know, I just brought it right up on my phone. It's got the bulletin for tomorrow. It tells us the next Sunday, the 5th is our breakfast.
It tells us what time the pancake supper is.
I haven't gotten that far. I can find the first page. Go ahead.
Okay, and again, because I wasn't at the last meeting, so I kind of took this from a different, I'm looking at it from a different way, I guess. I had listed like my 3 things, none of them were communication, because to me, communication doesn't happen. We won't be able to do any of these 3 without better communication, so I kind of feel like it's more global, because everything we've talked about so far and the different concerns, if you go back to the prior one, communication goes throughout all of them. So I see it as more of a global issue before you talk about more specifics of, because if you just look at talking about Fort Meyer Hall and some of the stuff, what are we gonna do with the grounds or the building? without communication, that can't even, go anywhere. So that I'm seeing it as more of a global problem that would be addressed to be able to set the goals for the future. It's just my way of looking at it, but I talk for a living, so.
That,
Well, this kind of ties into communication. I think it's really critical that we get our communication right, especially in the immediate future, because we've got Reverend Kathy leaving. We need to really be careful with that. So with Reverend TJ Beloit, I mean, I did go online and look at his biography, which was helpful. So I think we just have to be really careful and make sure we do it right. And this is in our immediate future. We only have Reverend Kathy until May, so.
I'd really like to Julie's idea about what's the best way.
Yeah,
well,
I just wrote myself a note so that when we put that information, when we ask people for information on themselves, we ask that question as well.
let me,
What is the best way to communicate with you and have that be actually in the directory?
means, methods, and have all the information, but have the one marked as primary. And let me really emphasize what you just said, which is, this is like you're a priest going on sabbatical, but you don't know for how long. And so you need to be really clear about your communication structures, where people can go for everything. And Joe might be thinking about this for that reason. It really helps if you can point to and say that this is your to go to. Of course, all your vestry people are go-to people, but that doesn't necessarily get your question answered. And you need to be, as a vestry, able to say, oh, this person's in charge of that. Let me put you in touch with them, and actually put them in touch. So you've got a handoff so to know, and then see, did you get a chance to talk about this, to follow up, because you don't realize how central a priest in this size parish is to communications. The first place people normally communicate is with the priest. So you're taking that out of the center of all of these hubs in the congregation, and you need to have the other structure in place.
To kind of follow up on Debbie, I think we also need to be mindful about what is communicated as far as we have new people, we have people from different traditions. I said at vestry, I've been here through 2 priest changes, but I never was really, I wasn't involved, and I didn't pay that close attention at the time to the process. So just being mindful of making sure we're putting out maybe even more information so that people feel included and involved. And then again, pointing to who they can talk to is always good.
Yeah, as you think about that as a vestry, and when the time comes, you've got some time here, but be planning for it, as Joe is suggesting here, and also have multiple faces of the vestry. It's not just Joe, because being senior warden, it's let everybody know who all the vestry members are, and they can go to whoever they want to. So you're keeping it clear, we're open to talking, have somebody else do the announcements every week, a different person, and at different services. Because everybody knows some of you, and they feel comfortable communicating with you. And you just want to have the door open for that.
I'm going back to the listening sessions that Rita brought up, and
I was thinking, if we have these sessions and people want to volunteer to do things,
Yeah.
that's the opportunity. I mean, like, everybody has expertise in certain areas, and I think that volunteering is what we need to do here, because we can't, pay people to do these things. We have to volunteer to do these things at this point.
Thank you, great idea. Another thing you may want to do, when you don't have a priest centrally, I mean, even if you're sharing a priest, is have a regular, say quarterly scheduling meeting where all the leaders of ministries come together and say, this is what I've got we've got coming up for the next quarter. And you get that volunteer type thing. Well, I could help with that, or we could help provide the dinner. And you solve a lot of problems, you get more people involved in it. And you're with good communication, you're gonna get a lot more celebration and a lot more volunteers.
Well, here's a real specific thing. How many people in the community are aware that we're doing a pancake supper this Tuesday? It always had been. I was not told that.
But that doesn't mean you can't invite people.
I mean, I didn't realize that it was only supposed to be for us,
It's not.
but that's what you just said.
Well, no, it wasn't intended.
No, not, but it was in the,
That's why it wasn't outwardly.
The website didn't have the time on it.
no, but it did.
Yes, I just noticed that too.
I just am going back to number one. Because this is sort of frightening to know that Kathy's leaving. She's been a wonderful person here and has supported lots of things that have happened, lots of changes that have happened. And I think we need to be aware that we need to do something about a new priest. We need to start now. And we're talking about maybe sharing a priest. That's okay too, but we need to do something about it, not just talk about it. People want to know what's going to happen to our church. Are we even going to be here? I'm sorry, but people are worried about it. We're worried about not having somebody to lead the ship.
Frankly, I'm a little surprised that didn't come up first on your list. And I want to say a couple things about it in Episcopal polity, some of which, how many did have it first? Wow. Okay, so I'm surprised it didn't come up first, because it is a huge concern for the congregation. And on the other side, in our polity and the way it works, you don't start replacing a priest until your priest leaves. And you take this time to say goodbye well, and you are way ahead of the game. And let me tell you why. This process for mission and vision is really a process of you saying, this is who we are. And if you look at the conversation from last month, you said beautifully, in many ways, this is who we are. And this is what's really important to us. That's the most important piece of thinking that you need to do about calling a priest. You need to say to them, this is who we are. This is what's important to us. And they will self-select into, this is the place I need to be, because they're going to match up with you. We're into the second session of this now, and we're talking about what are we going to do for the next couple of years. Well, this will be a big part of what you're gonna do, but it doesn't get that to that other piece about identity. Somebody's gonna come and help you with what you're gonna do, but you need to know what you're going to do to really have a sense of where God is calling you to, which is equally as much of who you are as what you already value. So what we're doing today is talking about what are we feeling called to do and to be as a community. A lot of that comes out of who we already are, but a lot of it also comes out of who do we think God is calling us to be next in this journey we're on. And that's the harder question, of course, but it's essential because whoever you call as a priest needs to be to somebody who can partner with you, both in your values and in the journey that you're going on. And so you started this process way before the Episcopal Church allows you to do this, but everything that we do will help set you up. It's going to give you criteria to say, this is the kind of person we need. And notice, I don't ask that question until way down the list. It's like a dating process. Who am I? What do I need? What am I going to do in my life journey? And how does this person match up? Well, the matching up comes a little later, but it's easy because you know who you are.
Thank you for articulating my number one better than I did. Yeah, that this process needs to happen so that we can call a priest that will match up with this parish, full-time, part-time, whatever. And I'm so glad we're doing this because as you're probably getting sick of hearing me say, we did not do it last time. And so you could either say we're doing it way earlier or we're doing it way later than the Episcopal Church wants us to.
Yeah, well, we're doing it in an entirely new time, which we also talked about.
Exactly, yeah.
We need to do it regardless.
And for what Adele said in what we're losing when Kathy moves to Minneapolis, also losing our IT person.
Oh, yeah. That's big these days.
That's horrible. And oh, we got all kinds of things like that. No, you don't need that.
Kathy, do you remember what you told me when you first came here?
That was a long time.
About what was the thing that you said grabbed you?
Your vision statement.
Our vision statement.
Love
Love
God,
God, love people, show it. And she said she read that and knew this is where she wanted to be.
And it remains that way. And what this is all about is continuing that and putting a little bit more flesh on.
Okay, I said I've been around for a while and I've gone through, I think, 3 committees that we called the priest to. And I was here for Kathy. And I want to tell you, if I was a priest out there and I seen what was going on here at Trinity Church, it's the first place I'd want to be.
And when they come and experience it, even more so, when you were talking about loving and caring, that experience is still rare.
You said you're gonna talk about this more today, later, or no? Because you said we're way ahead of the game, not even the time that we should be looking. And my question would be, my understanding is that times are different now. Before, when you go through this process and take a year and look and see where you're gonna go, you would have other leadership to come in, supply priests, et cetera, deacons. But my understanding is we aren't gonna, at least right now, we don't have that. So is the church adjusting to that in the bigger picture to allow us to get going on this? I understand the concept of doing the mission and vision first and lining up, but we're kind of in a weird spot compared to what I think we've been in the past.
Yeah, in order to be able to do this kind of work normally, you're going to have some interim or supply, or a combination of those in time. And you've got a couple of months to be thinking about that. One of the possibilities is sharing a priest for a period of time and seeing how that goes. And there's some advantages of that. You're gonna get somebody who can give you more time, but you don't have to go through a full interim type period and then call somebody else. You can see it's another bishop that I used to work for kind of described it in a way which I hate, but which is accurate in calling it rent to own. You get to, I mean, I really hate it, but you get to try somebody out and see. One thing you'll need to remember in that is to remind people, you know, the vestry isn't gonna make, the vestry is going to make this decision at some point about whether to continue this partnership. It's not a, do I like the priest or not thing for everybody in the parish. It's not a popularity contest. It's a sense of, is this the direction we want and need to go as a community? And so you're gonna fall back on this mission and vision process to say, this is why we think this works. And if it's a specific priest that you're sharing with, that means says something about collaborating with another congregation as well as a factor in that and figuring it out. But it also potentially can solve some of your other concerns like financial and continuing priest coverage. It's also kind of an opportunity because not having a full-time priest means that lay people do step up a little bit more, and your involvement becomes even more essential.
Does that answer, Jenna, what you're looking at?
Okay.
So what's the concern?
Well, because I guess I'm not understanding of the timing of things.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been through it, I know other people have, the timing of it, because and then you talk about, I understand the whole idea of, you know, rent to own type of things, but I'm talking about in between that.
So
That's what I'm not understanding, because you told us it's not supply.
Normally it's multiple.
yeah,
One would be
Supply, and then the possibility of interim. Those are, yeah, so that's ordinary. And what we're talking about is extraordinary because there are so few supply priests and there, I don't, boy.
So I'm asking, is the church,
No opinion.
not us, as a whole, looking at, because I don't think it's just.
No, it is not. It is not. In fact, I'll tell you this little bit of story. I've contacted the person in the Diocese of Minnesota who does the very same work as Scott Liana, who you missed, I'm sorry, but you'll see him eventually, who is our diocesan canon for ministry. It's his job to do this work. So to help Trinity find supply or interim and search, that's his job to do this work. And so I have contacted the person on the diocesan staff in Minnesota so that when I move there, I have said, I am available for this work. And the response I got was, tell me exactly the day you're gonna be here because we need you here because we don't have enough. That's the same answer we have here in the Diocese of Milwaukee. There are not enough. I mean, it's just the sort of the continuation of the shortage of clergy in general.
What I was asking changing their model to accommodate.
Thank you. Yes, and that is happening diocese by diocese. The model of how does a person move from, I think I'm called to be a priest, to an ordination. That model is changing. But that model is changing diocese to diocese as well, and not, I mean, the church, the Episcopal Church, has all sorts of, and new initiatives in that respect. Yet a diocese has to embody one of those new ways of forming and ordaining priests. I have not yet seen Milwaukee move in that direction. There's all sorts of things that happen in order to move in that direction. Different models of formation, different, I mean, one of the huge things is it costs an arm and a leg to go to seminary, to go to college. It costs an arm and a leg to go to seminary. So there's all sorts of things, and you have to give up 3 years of your life in order to do that. And people aren't, anyway, there's all sorts of reasons. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is the reality of the shortage. So given that, what does a church like Trinity, what is a church like Trinity able to do? And one of the possibilities is to share a clergy person. That's one of the possibilities, to share a clergy person. One possibility would be to go without. And you felt that while I was away this summer. And that was really hard, as I understand it. That was really hard. So what's the other possibilities? Scott is working on those possibilities. Who is there? Yet Trinity has to say, and I've been keeping Scott in the loop with these conversations. And he needs to know yet how Trinity is feeling about moving toward the possibility of sharing for a time. And I want everyone to be able to hear this really, really clearly, that nobody is talking about closing a church. Nobody is talking about that at all, not on the table, not what we're talking about. Okay, so you need to be able to answer that question when people ask it. Are we closing? The answer to that is no. We are looking at possibilities for how we can bridge this gap until Trinity answers the question, how is that the question? How are we going to hire the next full-time clergy?
And I guess I don't. I understand you answered it as best you could, but I'm trying to ask, and I'm wondering why the church is pivoting to accommodate for the fact that we're in the new reality.
Yes,
and it's not just right, it's
no.
not just you, but I'm hearing it's not. Because
yeah.
I think Adele was saying, and I think in your vestry, it's like, we need to get a committee formed. What I'm hearing from you is, whoa, that's like not till after she's gone, and then we start the process.
Yes, that's
and
how that works.
We're here feeling like we want to get going, but we can't.
Well, that's what we're doing here. We're getting going on it. Yes. It's in between.
You are getting going on the in-between part. You are trying to figure out who supply possibilities would be. That's limited in every diocese, and particularly in dioceses that don't have great weather. Because people don't retire here, and most supply priests are retired. So Florida has plenty of supply priests. And they have enough that if a supply priest doesn't want to work every Sunday, they split a church with another supply priest. That's excess supply priest. That's not the case anywhere in the Midwest. There are other places we can partner with for supply priests. ELCA churches, ELCA supply lists. Again, it depends whether people live close to Janesville, because somebody for a very small supply wage isn't going to go a long way away to supply usually. The opportunity to share and partner was brought up right in front because there might be that opportunity, and it would really give you a chance to cover this in between bridge while you're deciding who you want to call, and also potentially to try part-time and see what would work for Trinity. Would half-time be enough? Would three-quarter time be enough? Because you haven't really tried that. And it may be and again, these are vestry decisions. The vestry will decide, okay, this could work for us. And no priest has everything that we need. Whatever we're missing, maybe it's a time commitment, we're going to be able to cover as lay people or with administrative help, however we do that. That's the longer term thing. But until you try this, you don't know if this is going to work. And you also don't know whether the particular individual has the same passions and the skills that you need. So this gives you an opportunity, again, to that rent to own or try for that, which you don't necessarily get with supply. Notice how with supply, you're going to be taking a lot of what you can get. And that depends on what is around you. Interim, you could call a full-time interim. Usually they are more expensive than your regular priest. So keep that in mind. They will come here and stay for a year or two while you work through this. But you're going to be pretty far along on the identity part right away. So you might not need somebody for 2 years or 18 months.
Hello there. I just have a commercial announcement.
If anybody would like to meet Father TJ and hear him, come to the DOK. It's diocesan wide. It's in Zion the Commonwealth, Saturday, March 11th, 9 to 3 or 9 to 4. And the quiet day is, he's the one who will give us our meditations and things like that, so you can hear him firsthand.
This is going back to another used to, and it goes back a long way. But most of you know that there's a seminary that's just a few miles from here called Mashota House.
Father TJ went there.
That's right, Father TJ went there. And we always could lean on people. I can remember at least 3 people who would come as, well, they weren't seminarians, they were students that were coming, and the priest was sort of mentoring them. And I'm wondering whatever happened to our relationship with Mashota House. And they must have people graduating each year from there, is that correct?
They do. They're not large classes. And it is still a question of, is this person a good match? And some of them are. I've mentored fabulous, what I'll call new priests, usually who have, most new priests have a lot of life experience. So it is possible, but
I mean, they were still in school, but they would come on Sunday
Yeah, and then if they're still in school, if they're not ordained, they can't, do the Eucharist. They can preach. Yeah.
But that was one thing that we used at one time.
Yeah, so another component of this bridge time is what lay people do. And so, if you've got people who, are licensed to do morning and evening prayer, you're covered. And, not sure about preaching licenses in this diocese.
Yeah, yeah, you do again.
You might want to get a few more people licensed while Kathy is still here.
Yes, your name is on the list that I submit every year of licensed, people, but we could expand that list.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. There's still always, the concern about somebody can't make it here because of snow or something else, and having people prepared and your structure for morning prayer, is great. And again, you can do those as Zoom services too, so.
And Paula, might not preach extemporaneously, but she usually has something prepared, to offer during morning prayer, which works out well.
Those years, very was fun. We had a priest for 5 weeks. And then I did it for 4 or 5. Yeah, little John Pepper came from. You don't know him.
Yeah.
Fabulous. He came to my rescue.
So you do want the backup for that, and you want to take it as an opportunity if you have it. Because it's an opportunity to come together, see one another's ministries, support them, and be here. And some people don't do that well. They don't show up on a particular Sunday or whatever. But the churches where people do and come and support others' ministries in that are just as lively as anywhere else. Let's take a little less than 10-minute break, because I have gone over here.